All right, I'm getting this live on YouTube. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. As you can see, Dr. Saunders is not in his normal location. And so you guys are in for a treat today. All right, I'm getting this live on YouTube. There you go. YouTube is working. We're good to go there. So in case you didn't know, all of these are recorded. So if this is your first time here, welcome. We're so excited to have you here for our blood sugar and heart health webinar. We have been doing this for quite a while. We have, I think this is episode 274, maybe.
Wow.
So that's a lot. Yeah. And we have focused on type 2 diabetes. We focused on heart health, but we sprinkle in our fair share of
Oh,
other health related topics that are really fun as well. So we're excited that you're here. I just want to give you a quick disclaimer. So Dr. Saunders is a medical doctor and he's wonderful and we love him, but he's not your doctor. And so keep in mind the things that we share today are best discussed with your medical provider. Okay. So say hello when you guys hop on here in the chat. Let us know that you're here. And as questions come up, if you can post those in the Q&A, that is the best place for us to manage those. So those of you on Facebook or YouTube, hello, you can comment. We'll do our best to get to those as well. But today we're in for a treat. Dr. Saunders is at the Barton Team Retreat. And I believe the team is actually on the other side of this, facing Dr. Saunders. And there is another guy you've seen
there's
before. If you haven't, well, there you go. That was Joe Barton. And he's actually doing a teaching for them as well. And so we get to be a part of this. That's the benefit of having Dr. Saunders on our team is he gets to share his knowledge with all of us. And we ask him a lot of questions, just like you guys do. So feel free to ask questions. We're excited to chat about this. This stuff is very important. If you've been around for a while, you've heard him touch on some of these subjects. But we're going to talk a little bit about, I believe, 610 reset. We're going to talk about brain health. We're going to talk about longevity, and he's going to give us some insights into the best ways to do that. What we love about Dr. Saunders, he's a cheap guy. He looks for the cheap route for things, right? He doesn't want you to spend a bunch of money to do this when you can do things naturally that don't cost. And you'll find out more about what I'm talking about. So let's dig into this, Dr. Saunders. What do you have for us today?
okay. So last month I went to a conference on longevity. It was in Las Vegas. Everyone that you could think of that has written a book on longevity was there speaking. We had a whole bunch of topics inside. Excuse me. It, sorry, I developed a cough. Thank you.
While he's getting some water, I'm just going to mention this. If you go to bartonwebinar.com, you will find more information about our webinars. You can use code webinar25 to save 25% on anything that's there. Take it away, Dr. Saunders.
Okay, so in this conference, they had like 2 acres of booths, and the booths were all about just everything you could think of for longevity. There were supplements of all kinds, nutrients. There were tests that you could do for longevity. There were those beds, the red light beds, saunas, just everything you could think of for longevity. And so, we have these speakers, and they go through what does it take to live longer. And when the research all comes down to it, we talk about diet, food, right? That's really important for your longevity. Turns out, probably not. Doesn't have much to do with it at all. What about exercise? That's important, right? No. Exercise has more to do with your functional ability and less to do with longevity. Supplements? No supplements have ever been shown to help people live longer. All these injections that they're doing, hormones and all that stuff, no, that doesn't do it either. You really only have one thing, and that's stress reduction. And if you look at anything else that helps people live longer and better, it's based on stress reduction. So if you have sleep issues, then you're not going to live as long because of all the stress. Because not sleeping causes you to release a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol is the stress hormone that causes the catabolic metabolism and makes you break down your body. So that's why it's so important to think of it in terms of the bottom line. The bottom line is stress. And we're going to talk about a few things here. I'm going to start with the 610 reset. So you have your circadian rhythm is your sleep-wake cycles, right? One day I'm asleep, I'm awake. And then next day I'm asleep, I'm awake. And then that's the way the circadian rhythm works. And we often think of it as sleeping and waking, but there's so much more to it. This metabolism in your circadian rhythm changes dramatically in between the day and the night. During the day, you have what's called a catabolic metabolism. And the word catabolic means breaking down. What are you breaking down? Everything. Your brain is breaking down. Your joints are breaking down. Your muscles are breaking down. Walking around, like stepping down steps, you're making microfractures in your bones. And those bones are breaking. And if you keep going on that, you can become a stress fracture and completely rupture the bone, fracture the bone. And it's the metabolism is one of you're eating, you're active, you're awake, so you're making energy, you're doing things, and it's light. All these are really important because that's what keeps us going. So it's moderated by a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. It's the one that breaks down your body. It's literally breaking down. If they inject cortisone into your shoulder because you have a sore shoulder or something, if they go do a biopsy of that, what they find is it kills all the cells in there. You can't repair your shoulder anymore because the cortisone kills the cells. So why are people getting knee replacements and joint replacements and all that? A lot of it's because of the cortisone that they got injected with, because it is a catabolic hormone and it's breaking down all the tissues in there. Well, why do they use it? Well, because it breaks down the immune system too. And so you don't have any immune inflammation in there in the joints. So so you have so you don't have pain anymore. The pain goes away and everybody goes, wow, that's great. And then 6 months later, the pain comes back and they go, doc, I need another one of those shots in my knee. And you go, and the doctor now, it used to be they would just put one after another. Every time the pain came back, they put another shot in. Now, if you go the second time, they're like, nope, you can never have another shot in there because it's just breaking down. And then if they try to fix it, they can't repair it. There's nothing to stitch to because of the tendons and everything are breaking down. So this catabolic hormone is catabolic metabolism is something that everybody tells you should avoid. Don't go there. Don't, avoid stress, right? Well, that's not even logical. You can't avoid stress. And not only can you not avoid stress, you don't want to avoid stress. You have to go stress your muscles. You have to stress your brain to grow, to learn, to do stuff. If you're if you're not stressing, then you're not going to grow and learn and improve. So you have to have stress. So people telling you don't stress, that's not an adequate way to have longevity. There is another way, and that's something nobody talks about except the bodybuilders. If you read bodybuilder magazines, they're always talking about the anabolic metabolism. How do you get more anabolic metabolism? Well, the anabolic metabolism is very specific. It doesn't come randomly or automatically. It used to be automatic, but not anymore, and I'll explain why. It has to be dark. You make a hormone called melatonin when it's dark. You have to be asleep by 10 p.m. Why 10 p.m.? Well, because the cortisol reaches its lowest point right about 10 p.m. And then you release a hormone called human growth hormone. Not just a little, but like 10 times for 10 minutes, and you're done. That's all you get. It turns on the anabolic metabolism. And if you're awake after 10, you just don't get it. You get when you get a second wind. What's a second wind? That is your cortisol. You've just released cortisol. Now you're not going to release any human growth hormone. So this has to be released at 10 p.m. And it seems like that's not negotiable. People who say, well, I'll just go to sleep later and then wake up later. And so I'll get my 8 hours. Turns out it doesn't work that way. That you actually have to be in your circadian rhythm. You actually have to have this is pretty non-negotiable. When they did studies on people who are shift workers, for example, and they work different shifts, during the time that they're working the day shift, they get anabolic. During the time they're working the evening shift or night shift, they don't get anabolic. And it's not that you're breaking down, that's part of it, but the important part is you're not repairing. You're not repairing and building up your body. So you get these little microfractures and tears in your ligaments and tendons and all of that, and they don't repair. So what happens? Well, what's a rotator cuff tear? The rotator cuff can handle a ton. You could literally lift 2,000 pounds, and the rotator cuff will not tear. So how does anyone get a rotator cuff tear? A little bit at a time, every day, tiny bit, tiny bit, tiny bit, tiny bit, until those tendons are so weak they actually rupture with a minimal amount of stress. So this repair process is super important, and it's not avoiding stress; it's getting anabolic as much as you can. So it happens when it's dark. You make melatonin. That's one of the anabolic hormones. When you're asleep at 10 p.m., you get the spike in human growth hormone. And then when you're fasting and have an empty stomach, you make a hormone called ghrelin. Ghrelin is GHRELIN. And that is an anabolic hormone from your stomach. And this is really important because it's not just that you didn't eat any calories. It's your stomach has to be empty. Empty means there's nothing in it. So if you have anything in it, then the stretch receptors block your ghrelin and you're no longer making. This is the hunger hormone. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone. It tells you, I'm hungry. So whenever you're hungry, you're going, oh, that means I'm making ghrelin. And you can drink water and the hunger goes away. How does that happen? You didn't eat any calories. Well, it's just because of the stretch receptors. And so if you drink a bunch of water right before going to bed at night, then you don't have an empty stomach. You're not going to make ghrelin. Ghrelin is spelled GHRELIN, growth hormone releasing hormone. That's how it got its name. That's what it does. And that's why it's so important that we have an empty stomach when we go to bed. So a lot of people ask, so what does it mean to have an empty stomach when you go to, how long can it be before I eat? I mean, what's the limit here? It takes about 4 hours for an average meal to empty out of your stomach. But if you eat a half a pizza and drink a pint of beer right before, or at 6 o'clock at night, that's not going to empty out for 8 hours. Your stomach empties according to calories. So if you eat a bunch of calories at night, then your stomach's not going to be empty, or it'll take a lot longer to empty. So you'll want to eat at your last meal at 3 o'clock, if that's the case. Whereas if you're just going to eat a salad, vegetables that have very little calories in them, then it's going to take 3 hours to empty. And then you could eat at 6 or 7 o'clock at night and have your salad, and your stomach will be empty and you'll still get anabolic hormones. So this is how the system works. Yes.
Water has 0 calories. How would your stomach not be empty?
Okay, so if you drink water, you stretch the stomach out and it stops the ghrelin. But water empties out very quickly. So if you drink water, half hour before bed or whatever, it's pretty much emptied out. If that's all that was in, because it's emptied according to calories, there's no calories. So it empties pretty quickly. Good question. Okay, so the key for longevity is not just to avoid stress. It's really to become anabolic, and it's a daily thing. Every day, day after day, day in, day out, you do this, and you develop something else when you do this called resilience. So all of these things about longevity are really about reducing stress. And I'm going to discuss one of the lectures that I had about brain, how the brain works, and why this is important. So everyone has two executive functions in their brain. Executive function means somebody that executes. It's, President Biden is the executive of our country. If you have a chief executive officer of a corporation, they're the ones that execute the plan. And so the brain has two. And if you remember, Jesus said, man cannot serve two masters. You can only have one. And that's a problem. So people often talk about the fight that's going on within them. And this is universal. All humans have this experience of this ongoing battle. For example, somebody says, I wish I didn't do that. Well, who's the I that's wishing I didn't do that? It's the same I. And yet we're saying, I wish I didn't do that. It's these two executive functions that are often conflicting. And so I'm going to explain how that works and why this is important. So you have a prefrontal cortex, the prefrontal part of your brain, is something that allows you to make decisions. This is using judgment and knowledge and wisdom and skill. You learn things, and it's very moral and ethical. And then you have the limbic system that just works on how you feel at the moment. There's no time involved in the limbic system. It's passions, it's desires, it's fear, it's frustration. All the feelings that you have are from a different part of your brain called the limbic system. So when we're young, as children, we start off with just the limbic system. We have nothing else. There's no prefrontal cortex. In fact, the prefrontal cortex exists, but for the first 2 years, we're making 10,000 connections per minute, making more connections. So every cell in your brain is connecting to every other cell for 2 years. And then after that, there's more connections being made, but you start losing them faster. And by 4 years, you're losing more connections than you're making. Why are you losing connections? It's because of the prefrontal cortex. You have a learning process where you're learning how to do things. So everybody says, well, I want a brain like a baby. I want to have more connections, right? No, you don't, because you can't do anything. If you don't have, there's like tracks in your brain that nerve signals follow. And this goes to here, this goes to there. And that tells me that my sweatshirt is blue. We use the word blue to indicate so that I can communicate with people and say my blue sweatshirt, and everybody knows exactly what I'm saying. Children don't have that option. They don't know because there's too many connections, and their brain is too it's not organized. It's too disorganized. So the process of organizing your brain comes from the prefrontal cortex, where you decide. And that's a big part of the prefrontal cortex, is making decisions and keeping commitment. So your limbic system does not keep commitments. There's no commitment involved in there. The limbic system is, this is how I feel right now. So when you get married, why do you have to make a commitment to get married? Why do people live together, have a different relationship than people who are married? What's the difference? It's a commitment. And that commitment is, no matter how I feel about the situation, I have made a promise, and I'm going to keep my promise, even if I don't feel like it at the moment, right? And it's the same kind of thing that we make a commitment to live in a country and obey the laws. So I made a commitment to stop at a stoplight. There was somebody who was living in a foreign country for a long time, came to the United States, and he looked out his balcony and he could see the road down below. And it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and there were people stopped at a stoplight, no cars around. He's like, where I was living, they would never stop at a red light. If there were no cars around, they wouldn't even look. They would drive right through it. Why? Well, because we have a commitment to keep the laws. And that stems also from I feel like killing you right now, but I'm not going to do that. I feel like killing you, but I'm not going to do that because that wouldn't be good. I'm going to use some judgment and not kill you. Well, you laugh, but not everybody thinks that way. Some people are exclusively run by their limbic system. And I was watching a program, and there was on TV, and they were interviewing somebody who's on death row in California. And they asked the question, why? What do you think about being here in prison, death row? You're going to be killed. What do you think about that? He says, it's not fair. He said, I was just doing what everybody else does, trying to get what I need. I needed her car. She wouldn't give it to me. I had to kill her. Anybody else would have done the same thing in my position. No, not everybody. Some people actually have a prefrontal cortex and would not kill somebody because they wanted to steal her car. It's like having this morals and ethics is a very important part. Your limbic system has no morals, no ethics. It's everything about what I feel like right now. So how does that play into our 6-10 reset, where you go to sleep by 10 and you stop eating by 6? That's what we call the 6-10 reset. It is that your decisions as we grow older and we start making judgment decisions instead of using feelings to guide our actions. And so as we get older, we learn to use judgment instead. And that by itself decreases cortisol. Cortisol is lower in people who use judgment instead of feelings. So you go to the store. Nobody ever pulls Fruit Loops off the shelf and says, wow, this is good for me. I'm going to put it in my cart. Nobody ever says that. Why does anyone pull Fruit Loops off the shelf?
It's good.
I like it. It looks tasty, right? And so they're running on their limbic system and not on their prefrontal cortex. So what if you were to go to the store and say, everything that I'm going to buy everything with my prefrontal cortex. So I'm going to look at everything and say, is this going to nourish my body? And use your good judgment and your knowledge, and you have some wisdom and skill in this. You know what's good for you and what's not good for you. And so as you're going through the store, is this going to nourish my body? Yeah, I'll take that. Is this going to nourish? Yeah, that's nourishing. And then you still have food, right? But it's nourishing food. Is the beef jerky going to nourish your body? Just wondering.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. So as you're going through life, we gain more and more as we age. We gain more and more wisdom. Why? Because we're using our prefrontal cortex. We're not using our limbic system to run our lives. And that goes for everything. Is there ever a time when you would kill somebody because you're really mad at them? Ever? No, you would never kill somebody. Is there ever a time to eat ice cream?
Yes.
I don't know. Does it nourish my body? No, it doesn't nourish my body. Okay. Nourish yourself. Okay. Maybe. So, no, but thinking instead of feeling. And is there ever a time when you feel? Well, of course, you learn to love other people. But you know what's interesting is that part of this research that they're discussing is that love comes from thinking as well. And that's why we make a commitment in marriage, is because we learn to love somebody by staying with them, by getting to know them. When you come to the point in a relationship where you say, my needs are not getting met, that's the point at which you start to love. Love starts at the point where your needs aren't getting met, where your passions, likes, desires. Oh, this is it. This is a big one. Needs. That's a big one. That is people like the guy on death row in California. You know, I needed her car. She wouldn't give it to me. I had to kill her. There's just no other way around it. Need, right? So whenever you say I need, that would be a good time to think twice and go, oh, I'm using my limbic system. I'm not using my prefrontal cortex to work. So this is a great way to de-stress, is to use your judgment, skill, use knowledge and wisdom, and weigh things and ask the question, is this good for me? Kind of thing, all of that. So another part of this is Dr. Bredesen was discussing how I forgot what it was. Sorry.
Well, we do have a question here, Dr. Saunders.
Okay.
How about different time zones? How does that affect the 10 p.m. bedtime?
Okay. So if you move 2 time zones, it affects your bedtime and it'll mess up your circadian rhythm for a couple of days. If you move to the other side of the world, it'll mess up your circadian rhythm for 2 weeks. Unless you have, you're doing this on a regular basis, you have more resilience and you get right back into your schedule easily. But people who have an irregular schedule, then they don't get back into it easily. It takes them a long time to get into circadian rhythm. So time zones do affect it. If you want to look it up, Sachin Panda, Sachin, Panda, Panda, did a whole bunch of YouTube videos on circadian rhythm. And he discusses those things, the research that they did on nurses and police officers, shift work. There's something called shift worker syndrome. He discussed that. He wrote a book called The Circadian Code, where essentially this is all discussed. And this part, the anabolic metabolism, you have to go to the literature in bodybuilding literature to say, how do I get anabolic? And so that's where this comes in. It's actually very different.
So we're saying if you go to bed at 10 p.m. Eastern time zone, you also go to bed at 10 p.m. on Pacific, Central, Mountain, 10 p.m. no matter what time zone you're in, works.
No
Okay.
matter what time zone you're in. Yeah. And so so if you move from Pacific Coast to the East Coast, for example, it's going to take a few days for you to get into that. And so a few days you won't get anabolic, but then you're going to 10 p.m. still.
Can you speed that up if you ground yourself? I've heard that works. Like go barefoot outside in your new time zone.
Grounding helps make you more resilient. So the resilience is that part of it. So grounding, good nutrition, having a lack of inflammation in your body. So there are other things that affect this, of course. Question?
Yes, you said that the 10 p.m. You said that's really pretty non-negotiable, so you don't want to be later. What about people that are way earlier? Like, can you go too far the other way, like 8 early, or is it just don't go after 2?
I don't know. Eric Johnson says that he goes to bed at 8 now. Was that what it is? And he's getting 100% on his sleep every single night.
Ryan Johnson.
I mean Ryan Johnson, yeah. And he's getting 100%, and he's going to bed at 8 o'clock. So it's not that you have to be like in bed at 10 o'clock, it's you have to be asleep at 10 o'clock. And so if you sleep at 8 o'clock, then you're going to be asleep at 10 o'clock. And you can get up early.
How does it work for like people like class middle of winter? How does the body balance
part of it is your sleep wake cycles. So going to sleep in the evening, putting the shades down, darkening your room, It turns out there's been a lot of research on room darkening. And if you can see your hand in front of your face, your room's not dark enough. They did studies on rats, and there was a significant difference in their ability to sleep with just those little little teeny LED indicator lights that were shining on them. When I read that study, I took my LED clock. I had this LED clock that I really like because it's up on the dresser, and all I have to do is open my eyes, and I know what time it is. I just turned it down, face down, so it wouldn't shine on my eyes. Yeah,
What, sleep masks?
sleep masks. That's another option because they'll blocking out the light. Yeah, that's it turns out that that's important. And melatonin is really important. These are all anabolic hormones. They're all hormones that like melatonin. This is ghrelin, human growth hormone, testosterone, estrogen. These anabolic hormones repair everything. They're really important. Any other questions? Leslie, do you have anything?
How about people, this is the question that comes up all the time, and you address this a little bit, I think, but how about people that work the second or third shifts?
Yeah, well, during that time, they're just not going to get anabolic, apparently. That during those days that they're working evening or night shift, where they get home at midnight kind of thing, or work all night, they just don't get anabolic.
We do have another question here from Terry. What can you do if you have night terrors that wake you up through the night?
Okay, waking up is not a problem. If you look at a sleep study and you look at, they have a graph like during the night, you're awake, you have REM sleep, light sleep, deep sleep, right? And there's the different stages of sleep. And if you look at somebody's graph, everybody wakes up between 5 and 10 times a night. That's perfectly normal. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's really interesting. People who say they never sleep, they do sleep studies on them. And it turns out they sleep just as much as everybody else, but they remember waking up. Did you remember waking up 5 times last night? 10 times? No, I don't remember waking up that many times. But if I look on my sleep app, because I got a if I look on my sleep app, I'll see that I was awake an hour all night last night. I was awake probably 5 times, 10 times for an hour. It's perfectly normal. It's fine. The problem is remembering that you woke up. It's so much better to not remember. People who say, I slept great all night long. Well, they just don't remember waking up. They still woke up. They just don't remember it.
And maybe we need to chat a little bit too, if night terrors are what is waking you up, that may be something else to address also.
Yeah. Yeah, that might be something to address. I don't know, Freudian psychologist could interpret the dreams for you or something. I don't know.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question about fasting. This comes up a lot as well. And how do we navigate supplements and medications while we're fasting?
Fasting means there's nothing in the stomach. So you don't take supplements while you're fasting. And as far as medications go, you have to be really careful. Work with your doctor which medications you're taking, because while you're fasting, blood pressure medications can bottom out your blood pressure, and you'll get hypotension and dizziness and all that. Diabetes medications will bottom out your blood sugar. You'll get hypoglycemia. So you have to be careful which medications. Some medications, like if you have a thyroid problem, and if you don't make thyroid, you just have to stay on your thyroid medication and take it every day.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, go ahead.
Same thing
Yeah, supplements. No, you don't take supplements.
at night or.
Anytime.
You treat the supplements like food.
During fasting.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. What was that, Leslie?
I had another question, but so now if you do go to your doctor and you ask, should I take these medications while I'm fasting? What percentage of medical doctors are going to say, yes, continue your fast?
Probably a small percentage, maybe
Okay.
10%.
Okay, just to be prepared for that. I know that that's pretty
We
common.
were actually told in medical school, don't ever let anybody fast because it shuts down your adrenal glands. But it actually does shut down your adrenal glands. But that's what you want because that's when you make human growth hormone, and that's when you repair your body. You want to shut that down periodically, and if you want to do long term, where you have where you want to repair your body for a long period of time. I had somebody last week who, he came in for follow up last week. The month before he came in and he said, "My knees are killing me. I can't walk. He's 300 pounds, way overweight, and he has diabetes." And he said, "What do you recommend?" And I said, "I recommend you fast for 30 days, water only." And he said, "Well, we had more discussion than that, but that's what it came down to." He said, "Okay, I'll do that." So his wife called me and said, "You can't fast for 30 days, he'll die." And I'm like, "No, no, he won't die. He'll be okay. He has plenty of fat to actually burn, so he can burn that." And then, so then she's like, "Okay, fine." And then she starts making food for him while he's fasting. And it was Christmas dinner. She makes this big Christmas dinner. And she's not even Christian. Well, that was the funny part. And says, "Well, you have to eat it because I made it." So out of the 30 days, he fasted for 17 days. And his knee pain went away completely. He lost 20 pounds. And he says, "I can walk the dog now and go all over the neighborhood and I don't have a problem." Fasting is amazing. It is. It'll fix anything.
Okay, Michelle says, what happens if you volunteer some evenings and you're not home until after 10 on an intermittent basis? What if you have to get up to use the restroom during the night?
Oh, that's okay. If you get up to use the restroom during the night, that's okay. Just come back and go to sleep. If you look at the way a sleep study, if you look at the sleep study, you see that the deep sleep happens early on, between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. That's the time that you see deep sleep. And then you have some light sleep in there, and mixture in there. And then you have REM sleep, like the morning hours. And so if you wake up a bunch of times, if you wake up a couple times and you go into the bathroom and come back and go back to sleep, then there's no issue with that. It's still good. Because you were in bed at 10 o'clock, you released your human growth hormone. Yeah, you released your human growth hormone, and so you're in the repair process at that time anyway. So it's okay. So even people who wake up, I have people that say, "Well, I wake up at 3 a.m. and I can't get back to sleep." You know what? That's okay. It's if you just lay there with your eyes closed because you don't want any light, lay there with your eyes closed and just meditate. Meditation's a great way to handle that. And it's okay. It's like equivalent to light sleep if you're meditating in your bed at night when you're awake. It's the people that get anxious about it that go, "Oh my gosh, I'm awake. I'm going to be miserable all day tomorrow. There's no way I'm going to be able to handle this. Oh my gosh, what do I do? I can't get to sleep." And they toss and turn. But if you just lay and relax and just like use your meditation skills. Yes,
How
Joe.
does exercise in the evening affect HGH and sleep?
Good question. It's recommended to exercise morning or afternoon. Exercising right before bed causes a release of cortisol. So, but that goes away pretty quickly. So I don't know if that, I know it affects sleep, and you may even get better sleep. But I don't know if it affects your anabolic metabolism. I'll have to look that one up.
Any pre-sleep routine things that help to sleep better or fall asleep faster, like breath work or meditation or prayer or
Breath work, meditation, prayer, dark.
darkness.
Yeah. Yeah. And dark in the peripheral vision. These photoreceptors that see light, that tell us it's daytime, they're in the peripheral vision. They're not in your central focus. So if you're like looking at a phone, it's not as bad as everybody says it is.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And if you're reading on a phone or something, it doesn't stop you from making melatonin. I think that's the point.
Jack has a question, first time here, and is wondering if you could explain a little bit more about cortisol.
Okay. Cortisol is the stress hormone. You release it when you're stressed for any reason. If you eat sugar, it stresses your metabolism, you release cortisol. If you take methamphetamines, it releases cortisol. If you run, if you're stressing your muscles, it releases cortisol. If you have emotional stress, it releases cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone for any reason. There's no specific like because it's good stress, you don't release cortisol because there's good stress and bad stress. That's called eustress and distress. So eustress is like I'm going to the gym to work out. You still release cortisol, but cortisol isn't something that hangs around a long time. It's something that lasts for a short period of time and it goes away pretty quickly. So cortisol is necessary for function. It's what gets you up and gets you going. And why do people drink coffee in the morning? Because they need that cortisol in the morning. So that cortisol, without cortisol, you wouldn't think clearly, you wouldn't be able to function. So people who have it's called Addison's disease, where their adrenal glands don't function, they don't make cortisol. They're like fatigued all the time. They can't do anything. They can't think clearly. They don't have energy to do stuff. You have to have cortisol. In fact, you would die without cortisol. Addison's disease, people can die from it. And so then they have to take supplemental cortisol for it. So you want it, and you want to have a lot of it. And then at night, though, you want it to go down to zero. And at night, at 10 p.m., it's like 0.05, the level. Whereas if you look at 8 a.m., it's like 10 to 20. So there's a huge difference in how much cortisol there is at daytime versus night.
Question about fasting. What is the recommendation as far as frequency, water only, how long, and yeah, all of the
Okay.
details.
So I'll tell you what I do because after researching all this, what's the best way to do this? I don't like fasting. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. I like eating. And so I decided, okay, so the guy I was telling you about where his knees got better and I was told him to fast with just water for 30 days. The reason I said that is because he said, no, if I start eating, I'm going to keep eating. So I can't do a intermittent fast and just eat breakfast, for example. I couldn't do that. If I'm going to eat, I'm going to eat. So I said, okay, then you're just going to have to not eat for a long period of time. And that really worked for him. So it has to work for you. So for me, I've been researching it for a long time. And I've seen the research on the animal research that shows that a dry fast, no water or anything, is a lot better than drinking water during a fast. And so how do you do that? Well, it's something that I worked into. I started off with 24 hours of dry fasting, and then I did 2 days of dry fasting, and then I do 3 days. So now once a month, I do 3 days, no food, no water. But if I run, like I usually do a 5K run, I'll drink water afterward during the fast. So I'm not going to get dehydrated. So you have to use good judgment and use your frontal lobe and go, okay, how is this going to work best for me? And you work into what works best. Okay, so fasting means empty stomach. So if that's all you know, that fasting is empty stomach, that means, oh, that's easy. Don't put anything in your mouth. And so what about water? Well, you know what? If you're dehydrated, if you're thirsty, for heaven's sakes, drink water. It's going to go through your stomach pretty quickly. And then you're back fasting again very quickly. So it's not a problem, right? So a lot of people will fast what's called intermittent fasting. Well, they eat one meal a day, or they have a 5-hour window of eating, 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. And then they have 7 p.m. and noon, I guess that would be. And then they fast the rest of the time so that they have an empty stomach at night when they go to bed. That works, and a lot of people find that works really well. Didn't help me at all. I, my lifestyle didn't fit that very well. uh, let's see. So some people fast like one day a week. I have one woman, if she fasts, she had really bad stomach problems. And if she fasts one day a week, then stomach problems are gone. And she's off all her medications and feels great. But Mondays are fast days. So she eats Sunday night and doesn't eat again till Tuesday morning. And she says, as long as she does that, if she forgets and eats on a Monday, then her stomach problems come back.
Steven says, so lots of deep breathing is good to fall asleep.
Yeah, deep breathing is a good idea. Yeah, that the breath work is wonderful. It really lowers cortisol. It helps de-stress the body and allow you to get into this anabolic metabolism.
Okay. Any other questions over there?
Could you summarize why it's important to know whether or not you're using your prefrontal faculties in your limbic system in relation to catabolic and anabolic?
Okay. So when you're making choices in life, it's very important to be anabolic. And so when you're using your prefrontal cortex, you're making commitments. So you make commitments to yourself and you say, okay, my next meal, what's today? Thursday, Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday. So my next meal is going to be next Wednesday morning. And then you make that commitment and then you keep that commitment. That's using your prefrontal cortex. Or you put some limitation on what you do, like you say, I am not going to eat any processed food. Everything that I eat is going to have to come from in its natural form. And so you make the commitment and you follow through with that commitment. That's using your prefrontal cortex. That's deciding that. If you find yourself using your limbic system, this is what I like, this is what I need, this is what I desire, then the rule is that's not going to be healthy for you. And so people, they like to stay up late at night, and they like to eat, and they like ice cream right before bed. I had a guy, he was, he had diabetes, and he says, "You're not going to take away my ice cream." And I'm like, "How much ice cream do you eat?" He says, "1 pint of Ben & Jerry's every night." I'm like, well, I don't think that's going to work. You know, if you want to reverse your diabetes, I don't think that's going to work. He said, I gave up alcohol, I gave up cigarettes, I gave up drugs, methamphetamines, I gave up cocaine, I gave up marijuana, I gave up sex. I have nothing left but my ice cream. That's all of those are his limbic system. Right?
And that would make you catabolic.
And that would make you catabolic all the time. Right.
Okay, question from Misty. I joined late, so sorry if this has been asked. Does high cortisol cause increased glucogenesis when eating mostly protein and fats?
Yes. Yes. So in the morning, if you've ever heard of the morning effect, in the morning you release cortisol, and it's a lot, like I said, between 10 and 20. It's 100 times what you have at night. And so when you release that cortisol, you start making glucose. That's what gluconeogenesis is. Your liver starts putting out sugar. And you get insulin resistance. So your glucose goes up in the morning. People say, wait a minute, I'm fasting. I haven't eaten all day. Why is my glucose going up in the morning? It's because of the cortisol, and that's exactly right. So cortisol is wonderful. It's what gives you energy and allows you to do everything. But cortisol is because it's a catabolic hormone, it's breaking down your body. So it's okay. You're gonna break down. It's kind of like a car. Think of it this way: you're driving your car, and you say, "Gee, I want my car to last for a long time, so I'm not gonna drive it. I'm gonna put it in a garage, put a cover over it, and leave it." Well, what good is a car that's in the garage and leaving it, and you can't drive it, right? So it's kind of like your body. You have to be able to, and you're gonna break down, just the wear and tear on your body. And so the key is to repair and build it up again. And that's what we're missing in modern society. This wasn't a problem 100 years ago, 500 years ago. We have artificial light, so we can have light all night long. We can be awake all night long. We can be active. We can eat. There's a refrigerator. There's always something in the refrigerator we can eat. And we can make cortisol and drink coffee all night. And because we can, in modern society, we have to think about becoming anabolic because it's not going to be automatic, because our limbic system is going to say, "Oh, I can stay up all night. I can eat anything I want. I can eat any time I want." And if you're using your limbic system, then you're not going to get anabolic.
Okay, is black coffee okay? I get headaches in the morning if I don't get a cup, Don says.
I know caffeine withdrawals. Yeah, actually, black coffee doesn't really affect fasting much at all. So if you were to fast long term and you had black coffee in the morning, that'd be fine.
Okay. That is it for questions for us.
We're gonna take 3 minutes, and everybody, if you could come on up, we're just gonna introduce the Barton team to everyone on the webinar, because we're all here together, except for
Cool.
you, Leslie. We miss you, but great to be on the webinar with you. So I will start, and everyone else start heading up. Hi, Joe Barton. I'm the founder, and I do videos on Facebook and Google and YouTube, and I get to film one after this. I get to be part of the FPI, so that's gonna be fun. So, wait, this is my son. Hello, I'm Andrew Barton, and it's a little short here. I do some marketing assistant work for a couple of the other members on the team that you're about to be introduced to. So, make way.
You know me. Hi, Leslie. Nice to see you guys on other webinars, and I work in customer service.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Hello, I'm Jody and I am a project coordinator, so I just kind of help keep people organized and keep things moving.
All right, Jody.
Hello, I'm Timothy. I work on the tech team as a solution architect. I believe is my title.
Sounds good to me.
Hey, I'm Kevin. I do marketing on Facebook and Google and lots of other places for the team. Good to see you.
Hi, I'm Derek. I'm the talent of the group. I'm the video editor.
Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm on the tech team. I make it possible for you guys to purchase products online.
I'm Nick. I am in operations, and I make sure all the products get to you and on time and without a flaw, hopefully.
Hi, I'm Jeremy. I run our shared service functions. So HR, finance, operations, IT, kind of make all this stuff. My team makes all this stuff happen.
Howdy. Eric from Minnesota. Web development, front end development. A lot of the pages you see, I build them. All right. And Tyler wanted to come say hi to my wife, hosting the webinar, and I work with our partners who help us promote our products.
I'm going to stand on my tippy toes. I'm Kenesha. I'm 4'11" and a half. And I am in marketing.
I'm Esther. I'm on the marketing team as well.
All right. Good job, everybody. Thanks, Leslie. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. See you next time.
Bye-bye.